God honors faith. We are to trust God no matter what our circumstances.
Imagine that you're Jeremiah. Judgment has come. Your prophecies regarding Jerusalem have come true. King Zedekiah, the last king, has been captured. He's blinded. He's put in chains. And he's taken to Babylon. And you too are chained. You're waiting to be deported. And then it happened. And I wish I could have been there to see the expression on Jeremiah's face. Notice, Jeremiah is freed by Nebuchadnezzar. Jeremiah chapter 39, verse 11. Speaking through Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon gave orders concerning Jeremiah, saying, take him, look after him, and don't let any harm come to him. Do for him whatever he says. This is the commander of the king of Nebuchadnezzar, the king Nebuchadnezzar. And suddenly you're standing there in chains, and this commander says, take off the chains and free him. Free him. Now we could talk about, why did this happen? Was this just a supernatural intervention? Well, possibly. It certainly was supernatural, but it also probably had human elements, because word would have certainly gotten back to Nebuchadnezzar what Jeremiah was prophesying and what he was saying, and that is to submit to the king. Don't fight the Babylonians. That would be music really to Nebuchadnezzar's ears, because it would protect his army. They wouldn't have to go in there and lose a lot of lives. And so probably the word got back to Nebuchadnezzar that Jeremiah was really trying to be a peacemaker and to resolve this thing, but not to stand in the way and rebel, but to say we need to submit in order that we're not destroyed. That perhaps was one of the reasons, the human factors. But certainly there is a supernatural element here. In fact, when you read on, it's quite amazing. Look at verse 4, chapter 40. Now pay attention. He's talking to Jeremiah, who's just been freed. Today I'm setting you free from the chains that were on your hands. If it pleases you to come with me to Babylon, come, and I'll take care of you. I'm not going to take you in chains like Zedekiah over here, who's already been blinded and his sons have been murdered. I'm going to protect you. But if it seems wrong to you to come with me to Babylon, go no further. That's not a problem. Look, the whole land is in front of you. Wherever it seems good and right for you to go, go there. Jeremiah, you're free. Well, as I said, I wish I could have seen the expression on Jeremiah's face, because I don't think he anticipated this. After all, he'd been in a dungeon, he'd been in a pit, he'd been in prison, and all of a sudden, he's free. God honors faith. And that's what we see here. Jeremiah was trusting God through the whole process. And as I thought about that, I couldn't help but think of the heroes of faith that are outlined in Hebrews chapter 11, where the author of this book, we don't know who wrote it, but here's what we read. And what more can I say? Time is too short for me to tell about Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah and David and Samuel and the prophets, and certainly Jeremiah is included there. Ezekiel, Daniel, Jeremiah, who by faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, obtained promises, shut the mouths of lions. What about Daniel there in the pit, the lion's den? Probably 83 years old. And God shut the mouths of those lions. Obtained promises, shut the mouths of lions, quenched the raging of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, gained strength after being weak, became mighty in battle, and put foreign armies to flight. Powerful statement about heroes of faith. Jeremiah certainly is included in one of those categories. In Hebrews chapter 12, the author goes on to say, therefore, in view of these examples, in view of these witnesses, Old Testament, New Testament, therefore, since we also have such a large cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every weight and the sin. And by the way, isn't it interesting how he moves from a metaphor to a reality? The metaphor is the weight that a runner removes in order to run the race successfully. Stripping down. But then he immediately goes to the reality of what that weight can be in our lives: sin. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that lies before us, keeping our eyes on Jesus. That's the most important statement. You see, these witnesses, men like Jeremiah, are great examples, great heroes. But who's the greatest hero? Who's the one that ought to be the focus of everything? Keeping our eyes on Jesus. See, the whole metaphor here is of a race, running a race. And Jesus Christ is, in a sense, our goal. Keeping our eyes on Jesus, the source and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that lay before him endured a cross and despised the shame and is sat down at the right hand of the throne, God's throne. You know, it's interesting. There's a city, an ancient city in Turkey. It's close to some of the cities that are mentioned in the book of Revelation, where you have the churches. And that one city is called Aphrodisias. Elaine and I have been there. We've been there with a group of people. And there's an interesting place that I think might have been like what the author of Hebrews was talking about as a metaphor. And here's what it looks like. We've been there. In fact, in the lower left part of that picture, I've sat there. And it's circular, as it were, oblong, but it's all the way around. And runners would run within that stadium. But in the stands, and I remember as we sat there, we talked about this passage. The witnesses that are in that stand, as it were, all of the people that are watching those runners run, they're the ones that have won that race, cheering the other people on. That's the illustration. Perhaps he was thinking of this particular stadium with this metaphor of running the race and keeping our eyes on Jesus. Here's a reflection and response question. How do we explain faith in God for deliverance when some believers are delivered from pain and death, but other true believers suffer and even die? We talked about that principle earlier, principle 27. And the fact is that some people live and some people die. In fact, in Jeremiah's life, he lived, and remember, Uriah died. He was a prophet, same message as Jeremiah. In the New Testament, two brothers, James and John. James died, John lived. We think of John and Betty Stam in China when the communists took over. They died, other missionaries lived. How do we answer that question? We only can rely on faith in God, who is a sovereign creator. And that illustrates Paul. He was in prison. He was in prison the first time when he wrote to the Philippians. And notice what he said. I know this will lead to my deliverance through your prayers and help from the Spirit of Jesus Christ. In this case, he was actually delivered from prison. But he went on to say, even if I die, I'm delivered. I win whatever, whether I live or whether I die. If I live, that's good for me to continue in ministry to others. But if I die, that is far better. What an incredible perspective. I wish I could have that faith. Faith to trust God in all circumstances. How easy it is to doubt, isn't it? God is our sovereign God. So here is a principle to live by. We're to trust God no matter what our circumstances.